I'm here to talk to the people that are interested in getting involved in the business of pot. It won't be very PC. We won't talk a lot about advocacy. We're just going to talk about money, and we're going to talk about the business. How many people here are here because they have an interest in getting into the business of marijuana? Wow. How many people here are interested in getting into the business insofar as the talking strictly about anything that would require a license? Okay, so 90% of you are interested in going after whatever license might be available to operate a business, and the other 10% or so are interested in maybe ancillary businesses. Is that right? How many people are interested in starting an ancillary business or think that they're going to make money on the pick and shovels part of this? How many people have heard that one in this industry? That's all the time. Okay, that gives me a good start. The picks and shovels? How are they a good business?
They're the only ones making money right now.
I'm doing it wrong then. It's something I didn't know. Okay, well, this will be geared towards those people looking to get licensed. The picks and shovels people, come to my breakout thing and we can have arguments all you want. The picks and shovels are, I think, a lot easier to digest. I think it's a lot easier to look at it as an entry point or point of entry into our industry. The pick and shovel people aren't making money in this business. In fact, most people aren't making money in this business. Let's get that out of the way right now. This is like any other business, so I don't care if we're talking amongst franchisees of Subways or we're talking to the pot world. Most people are failing. Most people will fail. Very few people will succeed, and those that succeed consolidate power, and a few people run an entire industry, right? That's how it works. That's how this works. I don't know how many people are here today. I'm going to guess 150 people in this room, something like that. I'll tell you right now, when we started this in Vegas, we spoke in front of rooms. Literally, there were 1,000 people in the room. And I'll say the same thing I say to everybody. When it comes to those of you that are interested in getting into the licensed portion of this industry, in this room right here, if there will be less than I can fit on one hand. The rest of you are just here for educational purposes and to spend a Friday in Boca Raton. Now, it's important that you go through this process, but here's, I guess, where I can help, or my information hopefully can prove helpful. It's more of a challenge. It's a challenge to be honest with yourselves. It's a challenge to understand what it is you're looking at and to make real decisions now. What I hate seeing and what I see all over the country, again, started off in Vegas, talking in front of 1,000 people in Clark County. And in Clark County, I don't know for any of those that follow what's going on with marijuana businesses in the rest of the country, but in Clark County, there were less than 100 people that turned in applications for a dispensary. And I spoke at an event like this, where there were 1,000 people, and when I said, who's gonna get into this business? Everybody, woo! And less than 100 people turned in applications for 18 spots. And that's what it'll be in Florida. And, Charlotte's Web and the 5 that are open, I think anybody that's looking at this from a real business standpoint concur with my belief that, that's a stopover. It's a lead to the next thing. MedMen 2, and a lead to the next thing, which, hopefully continues to open up the medical side and eventually opens it up so patients have access, pretty much across the board. I don't think, is anybody here today here because they're interested in a Charlotte's Web license and think that that's how they're going to make their money the rest of their lives? One person. Nobody's making any real money on that law and on that opportunity. I think there's a lot of experience to be gained in that opportunity, but that's not why you're here. So getting back to the 1,000 people in the room in Vegas and less than 100 total groups that turned in applications for 18 spots, learning what I learned there and learning what we're learning in Illinois now, and learning what we learned in Massachusetts. Keep in mind there are only 3 states preceding potentially your state, if Amendment 2 passes, that have gone through a merit-based application process. Everybody know what those are? What are they? Lady in the pink. That's okay. Guess. What do you think? Merit-based. What are the 3 states? Well, lady in the pink gets to do it. She said she knew. No? All right, anybody? 3 merit-based states so far. Okay, skip it all. Massachusetts, Nevada, Illinois, okay? The rest of the states, you know, if you guys want to throw in New Jersey, Connecticut, they have one cultivation facility and dispensary, or DC that doesn't have, those don't have real programs. Their process was far from merit-based. It was a whole nother level. You talk about a merit-based application process for an oligopoly, which is what Florida will end up having. You have Massachusetts, Nevada, Illinois. The first thing that I'll share with everybody here that wants to go after a license is, if you don't become an expert on those 3 states, off the gate, you're way behind, right? In anything in business, you want to learn from what's happened before you and plan for what's happening ahead of you, right? So if you're going to move forward, that's what you need to look at, those 3 states. Massachusetts was the first state to do it. Their whole program is blown up right now. Read about it. Read the lawsuits. Read what happened wrong. Read what people did wrong. Read why that program's not coming off the ground and why people that spent millions of dollars can't be in business. Nevada's the next state. Read about it. Look at what's going on in Nevada. Look at what's going on in Clark County. Look at what's going on politically there. Look who's gotten a license and who hasn't. It's very interesting because, you know, Las Vegas is an economic hub for this country, and so you have a lot of big players in Vegas. You can learn a lot. And look at what they've done. And now Illinois. Look at what Illinois is doing, preceding you guys. And I think that will give you a really good frame of reference for what's going to go on here if Amendment 2 passes. That's number 1. So when I look at a new state, and when I look at a bunch of people that all want to get licensed in that state, there are 3 things I break it down to. The first thing is, I like to say, play the game. What does play the game mean? How many people think that the first thing you should do if you want to go try to get one of these licenses is hire a lobbyist? I'm not going to, judge anybody. Please raise your hands. Thank you for raising your hand. How many people think the first thing you should do is hire a lawyer? A lot more people. Great. Can some people just give me, for those that don't think you should hire a lawyer, hobby lobbyist, what's the first thing you should do when you make an attempt? Say, hey, I'm going to go try to get one of these licenses. You want me to just, well, that's not as fun. Well, the reason I don't just tell you is because I think it's important that everybody gets to kind of see what everybody else is thinking. I think the biggest value that a potential business person gets from an event like this is to get to network with other people, to see where the rest of the industry is at, see what their competition looks like, and to see what goes through other people's heads. I think it validates what they have going on, and it also challenges it. That's why I ask. It's not to be a smart ass. It's because I actually want to know. Every state's a little bit different. I heard hire a business consultant. I heard write a check. And these are all valid. I don't know the answer is why I don't just tell you, because Florida hasn't passed Amendment 2 yet. Here's what I know about playing the game and what I've learned from the 3 preceding states. First of all, the political pull that anybody would have at the state level is meaningless. Number 1. If I come back here in 3 months and have this conversation again, I bet half the room will raise their hand and say the first thing we should do is hire a lobbyist. Because that's what happens in all these states. They hire lobbyists. You know why? Because in 3 months, when these guys that put on a great event for you have another event, it will be filled with lobbyists. And that's just because the money's here. And so those lobbyists that have been very successful in healthcare and been successful in other vice industries, they're going to show up here and they'll be promising you the world. $100,000, I guarantee you a license. I have all the pull in the world. And they're going to make a lot of money. The people that make the most money up front in any of these new states are the lobbyists and then secondarily the lawyers. Nothing that a lobbyist can do for you on a state level matters when it comes to a merit-based application process when you look at what's happened in Massachusetts, Nevada, and Illinois. By the time your application gets to the state, you have an application reader I brought for everybody. This is a state application. Weighs, 25 pounds. It's over 1,000 pages. This is what it looks like. By the time this goes to the state, any lobbying efforts or pull you think you might have with the state's meaningless. You're being judged on some kind of point basis. You've got somebody behind a desk checking a bunch of boxes and adding up scores. So the first thing when I say play the game, I mean play the game. Understand the game you're playing. Is the game that you're playing here in Florida going to be that the hardest part of this is going to be to get local zoning approval? Is that going to be the game? Because if that's the game, maybe a local lobbyist matters. Maybe for those of you that are, playing up in Orlando, maybe you need a lobbyist in Orlando to help lobby the zoning there to get the buildings that you have access to approved. Is that the game? Playing the game, does that mean that maybe the state of Florida decides that they want to see the most diverse business owners in the country with cannabis? They want to see all minorities and war vets. Literally, that might be the game. I don't know how many people have read the draft regs in the state of Florida, okay? Again, this is why if 2 people here end up licensed, I wouldn't be blown away. Fine, that's what it'll be, because there'll only be a handful of people in the whole state that get licensed, but this is where you need to catch up. Had anybody seen the draft regs for Maryland yet? No? Okay. Look at Maryland. It's the next state that's going to do it after you guys, probably. They're very big on minorities. They want to see minorities. They want to see vets. What's the game? What is the state trying to accomplish? Play the game. If it's about local zoning, hire a local lobbyist. If it's about having a diverse team, start networking and build a diverse team. Play the game. So if we're going to have a merit-based application, which you guys inevitably, undoubtedly will have here in the state of Florida, first thing is play the game. The second thing I would say is don't be distracted. It's amazing, and it shows sincere interest that you guys paid the money, you showed up here on a hot day, and you're sitting in this room listening to a complete smorgasbord of stuff, right? And I promise I've been in your chairs, and I assume that some of the stuff you're listening to, you're kind of rolling your eyes at, and other stuff you're taking notes on. Don't be distracted. If you are the people here that want to get into the business end of this and you want a license, don't be distracted. Wait till how many people have gone to a national cannabis show? Anybody were you guys at Denver a couple weeks ago for the money show out there? I mean, how distracting was that place? It was excellent. It's eye-opening, right? But it's distracting from the time at which you decide you want to go after a license. Because you go to these shows and you have people talking about new grow technologies, and you have people talking about Bang chocolate bars and licensing deals with their chocolate bars and the biggest candy company, and you have a guy that's selling a new tractor to mow this that grows inside hydroponic, extra special. Who cares, right? Because you're playing the game, you're trying not to be distracted. I can't tell you how many people I see running around the country. Oh, we're going after a license in Florida, but we have a call tomorrow with the pop-top bottle guy. What are you doing that for? Well, we're really excited about this new pop-top bottle with child safety. You're not in business. You don't have a license. What are you doing? You're distracted. Well, we're meeting with a grower from Vermont that claims that who cares? Your state hasn't even come out with the ways in which you can grow pot yet. So you're going to go meet with some grower in Vermont that's never done anything on a large scale, and you're going to talk to him about his growing methodology because he's a master grower? You're being distracted, right? We're playing the game because we want to get a license. So the first thing I would say is, once you understand what that game is, don't get distracted. Come to an event like this. You should. But you know why you come to an event like this, if you're in this class of people, is to network. Because maybe playing the game means it's all about real estate. I'll tell you right now, in Illinois, that's the game. Illinois, it's all about real estate. I don't care who you know at the state level. When we get calls in our office every day, all day from Illinois, the first thing everybody asks is, oh, well, how politically connected are you? Because I'm so politically connected, I'm guaranteed a license. No, you're not. You have a building yet? No. In Illinois, it's all about the buildings. They are so restricted with their zoning that there are less buildings in Cook County than there are licenses to be had. So what is your game? Understand what it is, what we're going to play here in Florida, and go play it. So come to an event like this, network. If Florida is all about the state that's going to be so diverse with the licenses, every American Indian, ex-war vet, yellow, black, Asian, whatever, grab them, throw them in a corner and say, I want you on my team. I don't know what the game's going to be, but what it is, play it. And don't worry about pop-top bottles, and don't worry about, new grow methodology. That'll come later. Don't be distracted. Distraction is the number one thing that kills people in their progress towards putting one of these together. When the lobbyists show up and they start pitching you and, pay me $100,000, you're being distracted. So play the game. Understand the game first. What is the game? I don't even know what it is yet in Florida. You're here to find out. And as things come down the line, you'll find out what it is. Play it. Don't get distracted. And the last thing I would say is understand the landscape. This is a big one for me. I assume most of the people here are here. You've been successful business folks, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't think you have a chance to be in this business unless you've proven it in another business. And in the business where you come from, you understand the landscape. If you're in healthcare, which many of you are, you understand what it is to put an RFP together. You know what the state's looking for. You know who the players are. You know how important lobbying is. You know how important your legal is. You understand the landscape. You know who the scam artists are. You know, or the people that are just, trying to get in from, a quick buck that are going to derail your whole application. You know the big, important people you need to add to your team. In this industry, it's the same way. Understand the landscape. You go to a national event like the few of us that went, you guys should all go to these events. Go to every national event you can go to. Hey, I know it's an investment, but you guys are looking to get into a multi-million-dollar business. If you guys aren't ready and have access to millions of dollars and you want to get on the licensing side, you're completely lying to yourself to start. So to spend a few $1,000s to go see what's out there is a very small investment. Go to these there's a big national show in November in Vegas. Go to it. It's called the Canna-Business Show. That'll be the best show in the country. But when I say understand the landscape, understand what's going on at those shows. Understand what goes on at these things that I'm speaking at right now. If somebody has been extremely successful in the business of marijuana, you got to ask yourself, what are they doing talking to you? What are they doing with a booth at one of these shows? If they're making $10 million a year, are they taking time to sit at a booth all day and pass out business cards and talk about how great their soil is? Or are they making $10 million a year and they don't have to go pitch you at a trade show? Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but understand the landscape. And here's where the landscape's at. This is a very sexy industry. I don't know, for anybody who lives in a cave, you might not know this, but for everybody else, turn on CNN any day of the week, they're talking about marijuana. Go to Wall Street Journal, they're writing about pot. When something this sexy happens, the circus comes to town, right? And I mean, it is what it is, it's the circus. So understanding the landscape, you've got what was a black market industry, underground, all cash, no taxes, off the grid, that's now transitioning into a legitimate industry, okay? For those people that were so successful on the black market, many of my friends, they think what I'm doing is crazy. They would never come talk to you, and they wouldn't come to Boca Raton in the middle of the week. They're running their operations, and they're hoping that it takes 20 years until this is fully legitimate. Right? Doesn't that make logical sense? So understanding the landscape, you're coming out of a black market. Those people in the black market, they're not playing with you here, and they don't play nicely. They want the market to themselves. Right? Now you've got states that are requiring you to be an upstanding citizen, have, no felonies, be clean, not have really any background in this industry. They're requiring you to go get a license, not my buddies. So where does that leave you? It leaves you vulnerable to the circus. Because what do you know? You don't know any different. This guy said he's a master grower and he's got long hair and braids. He must know about growing pot. But understanding the landscape, if he really knew about growing pot, as opposed to worrying about he calling himself a master grower, he'd be growing pot somewhere. Probably, right? So, when I say understand the landscape, be skeptical. And I know it's hard to be skeptical when you don't know who to trust and what to trust. Trust yourself. If somebody's story makes perfect sense, that's great. If you're going to hire, for those that went to Denver, we were there, but we're not the only consulting firm that's there. There's a lot of other consulting firms. Trust yourself. Well, how many times have you done this? I've been in the marijuana game for 15 years. Okay. How many applications can you show me that you've written? Well, I've never written an application, but I know about growing pot. Okay. Trust yourselves. Whether it's a consultant, somebody said the first thing you do is hire a business consultant. Maybe, if it's the right business consultant. But they better be able to guide me based on experience. Have you done this before? Have you written applications before? What have you learned? Where have you failed? Just like any other industry, these are the questions you want answered. This is the learning curve that you want expedited on your behalf, right? You're paying them because you don't want to go through the learning curve. Trust yourself. Understand the landscape. The circus is here, right? Everybody's flocking to this. This is like when the real estate boom happened and every single person went out and got a broker's license. Remember that? Same thing. So I say go to the events, but be skeptical. Understand the landscape. Understand what's happening in your state. For those, when I said, who's read Charlotte's Web? Who's read Amendment 2? Who's read all this? And you guys aren't raising your hands? Huge red flag for me. You would have been better off staying home today reading than coming here, honestly. And then once you've read that and you have a mastery of it, go look and read Illinois, Nevada. Understand that. So you can get a feel for what the game's going to be. And then once you understand what the game's going to be, go play the game. Then don't get distracted and understand the landscape. If you can do those things, you might get to a place where you turn one of these in. And once you turn one of these in, game's on. Now, I've been maybe a little negative. Here's the positive. In Clark County, which Miami, southern Florida will probably be very competitive. The Chicagoland area of Illinois will be competitive. Nothing will be competitive like Vegas was. Nothing in the country ever again, period. That was insane. Okay? But nobody will make money like those in Vegas in the country when it comes to pot either. So it was insane, justifiably so. But with 18 dispensaries, 80 some odd people turn in applications. So the silver lining here is that, only a few people will end up at the finish line, but, the thought that many of you might have, we're going to compete against 1,000 people no, you're not. No, you're not. In Massachusetts, screwed up program, but again, we want to learn from each of these programs. They had 72 people applied for 35 spots. Clark County, 80 some odd people for 18 spots. That's what it's going to look like. So don't worry about, I have to compete with the thousands. Worry about you getting to the finish line. Ask real questions that you would in any other business. What's my at-risk capital going to look like? How many people have asked that question? I talk to people from Florida every single day. You know what they ask me? How much is it going to cost to build out my grow? What kind of question is that? How about how much at-risk capital do I need to set aside to turn one of these in? Look at this like a real business. Go through the 3 things I talked about. And be really honest with yourself up front. The worst thing you can do is come to events like this, think that you're going to go ahead and pursue one of these things, and get to a place where you don't turn this in. We had people in Vegas that paid us $100,000, paid lobbyists God knows how much money, and got to the day before these were turned in and walked away. Ooh, how terrible is that? They weren't honest with themselves. They got to the finish line, and we were asking for certain documentation, and they didn't have it. They couldn't provide it. We said, hey, at some point we're going to need to see $5 million liquid. Oh, we've got that. My partner's got that. Well, we need to see it in a screenshot with a letter of commitment. The day before, I've got it, but my partner's not comfortable signing a letter of unconditional commitment. Well then what are you doing, getting this far if you didn't get that handled first? They weren't honest with themselves. Brian in the back of the room, he was there. We were there. It was Easter Sunday at 1 a.m. at a print shop. We're printing off tens of thousands of pages of this stuff. We literally had a client walk up, just be like, where's the rest of this stuff? I don't know. I guess I'll pull an all-nighter. Brian, I think his quote, and Brian's amazing with his quotes. They're really, it's not college, bro. I think that was the comment back to, I'm going to pull an all-nighter. And the guy walked away from the whole thing. Don't be there. And don't be here. What are you doing? You're sitting here learning about water and hemp, and you're listening to me, pontificate. Don't do this if you're not going to turn an application in. You've got way better ways to spend your time. So if you can really understand those 3 things, be honest with yourself, educate yourself, and then make a call. You're going to make a decision. How much at-risk capital is it going to take for me to get to the finish line? I'm good with that or I'm not. I'm putting a bet in. I'm playing blackjack. I'm used to talking to people in Vegas, but you guys, you have Hard Rock down here, whatever. You understand gambling. You're playing blackjack. That's what we're doing. You've seen your first card. It's a 6. Okay? The dealer's showing a king. You want to put $150,000 up and see the second card? The difference is payoff might be 100 to 1. That's the bet you're making. Be honest with yourself. So you want to make that bet? Start now. Because I'll tell you right now, Brian and I have been, meeting with people from all over Florida while we're here, and we're going to go meet with more people tomorrow. The biggest players in the state are going to play this game. And they're not going to win because they're the biggest players in the state. When Harry Reid's son doesn't get a license in Clark County, but I get a license, there is something to be said about the merit side of this. They're not just going to get it because they're the biggest players in the state, but because they're the biggest players in the state, they've got the money and they have the wherewithal, to play it right. So if you want to go compete against them, you got to start. They're starting now. We had meeting with a guy tomorrow. We talked to him yesterday. Billionaire, everybody would know him in the state. He's going to play. Hey, I'm okay if it takes 3 years, he tells us. That's fine. It's better for me because I got the money and I got the people. We'll wait it out. I want the barrier of entry to be as high as possible. You guys want to go play with him? Because if you do, ask those questions, get committed, set up whatever team you need to set up, and it has to start now. It can't start November 10th. For those of you that think you're going to wait to see if the amendment passes to start this process, literally go to an air-conditioned movie instead of coming here today. Because it's a complete waste of your time. For those of you that once it passes are going to then wait for local zoning to come out until you secure your building, please go to a movie. Don't be here today. This is all about bets. Hey, all the real estate that we lock up across the country, I'm locking it up before the zoning is even thought about. I'm looking at what the state's done and what the state requires, and I'm looking at all the preceding states and all the preceding counties in the states I've told you to go ahead and look at. And I'm making a bet. Hey, this has got to zone out. And I'm going to lock it up. And then I'm going to pay a local guy, or I'm going to go in locally. I'm going to meet with the sheriff and the zoning department and whoever else it is and say, you've got to approve this space. But I'm not going to wait for them to come out with it. I'm done. So, getting back, bringing it all together. Play the game. Got to understand the game to play it. Don't be distracted. Stay focused on what you're here to do, for those of you that are here to do it. This isn't the pick and shovel folks, and this isn't the advocates. These are the business people that are here because they want to get a license. Don't be distracted. And then understand the landscape. Be very skeptical. Understand most of this is a circus. Most of these people have no good information. If anything, it's bad information. So sort through all the crap right up front so you can make a decision. And if your decision is to move, move. If your decision isn't, stop. I think that's all I got.